Good afternoon. Chris, the principal here for another episode of The Principal, a show in which we discuss the great errors in our educational system and in our culture, where we get down to the nitty-gritty of why things are so bad, the true roots of our rotten culture and society, which needs a great course correction, and why being able to think critically, being able to raise children properly, and reorder our minds towards objective truth is so important. And today, I have a very somber, awful topic to discuss, but it needs to be dragged out into the light. And it's very damning. It's damning on the whole kit and caboodle. This is not something that involves just politics and what the elites are doing. This involves something that I believe everyone has dropped the ball on. And the more I look into it, the more sickening it is. And you see the title right there. And it is our evil sexualized educational system. Why has it become so normalized to be okay with sexualized children? That is a question. You know, I really see something very wrong with the current activist hemisphere of the West. Whether it's left-wing or right-wing, there's something very off about it. And you see people, you know, I have a comedian on YouTube, Football Rage, right? People get angry at football. They get angry at the taxes being too high. They get angry at what the president is doing. They get angry at the war in Ukraine. But where is all of this outrage and outcry when they have their little Johnny and little Jane coming back from schools reading child pornography? That's right. You heard it here, and maybe you haven't heard it here first. Thank God the word's getting out. But sex ed has gone so far off the cliff that children are being introduced to graphic, pornographic erotica at as early as the age of 5 to 8 years old in public schools. Now, where is the outcry? If we are so serious about saving the Western civilization in our countries, and especially the United States where I live, if we're so serious and we're so upset, why am I not seeing action in the places where we have direct control? You know, I believe that it is becoming completely inappropriate for people to be sharing all of these news articles. And these topics are important, you know, about banking corruption and government corruption and even church corruption. You have all of these problems, which, don't get me wrong, we talk about they are affecting people, but they are not directly under our control. Why do we not aim towards things which we do have direct control over? And one of the things that we have direct control over is the welfare and spiritual, emotional, and psychological well-being of our children. Hello? This is a very common sense thing. I don't understand what happened to people. They are glazed over. And then you had the COVID thing, right? When people were scared of something that was a little bit deadlier than the flu, and they hurt children even more by locking everything down. So that got them crazy. So when it comes to money and saving our own hides, we're okay. But when it comes to people that are the most innocent and defenseless of all, well, that's a shame, you know. Oh, yeah, I heard about that. Really crazy. You should be throwing hell, and there should be fire and brimstone. There should be torches and pitchforks. Am I not wrong? Or maybe, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong and this is something that really isn't that important. But I disagree, and I have yet to see any strong arguments against it. Now, I'm not saying that all parents are indifferent to it. There have always been a remnant of parents that is growing now that it's gotten so insane, that are raising hell and have been. There have been the homeschoolers. There have been people that put their children in charter schools and parochial schools and good private schools. And I recommend that is, you know, right off the gate, the best course of action right now is to take your kid out of public school. I know people are saying they want to hold on to their dear La La Land vision of, well, maybe these public school board members have some kind of conscience. No, they don't. They only care about their paychecks. A lot of them are woke themselves. And you look at the videos. So I have in my description videos which show this in action. Next time I'll actually use video segments. I had to rush a little bit, so apologies, but you can still check it out. These aren't long videos. And Dr. Steve Turley, Tucker Carlson, John Stossel, they show what's happening on the ground level in these schools, and these people are completely incorrigible. They are unrepentant. They don't care. They turn off the microphones. They do not like the parents. They hate parents who have godly values and conservative values. They are actually trying to indoctrinate your children. These are enemies. These are enemies. Get it through your skulls. Stop the bipartisan, maybe hopeful, that's a bygone era. And this particular political hemisphere is so divided into such cult-like mentality. These people, if you slap a D on it, right? Just slap a D next to the name of the politician or slap a D next to this idea, they are so brainwashed they will go down into hell itself. They, they'll vote for the devil if he's a Democrat. I'm not kidding. They are that woke. And it's very serious. So right off the gate, if you're wondering, well, what's the solution? Well, the solution is there are schools which are not following this. And you can check them out. And I actually belong to a school in New Jersey, Psychor Academy. I don't know if anyone's in the area, but we do not teach sex ed or critical race theory. So it's a little bit of advertising, but we're not the only school. The second thing is you need to grow up yourself, because one very important thing that we need to realize, and I'll get into more of the details of the awful stuff that's going on, but one very important thing we need to realize as people, if you're into any sort of objective morality, reason, if you're into foundational values of right and wrong that challenge people's feelings, and you believe there's more to your feelings, the crux of the main philosophies, right? So the main philosophies of what made the West what it is, Christianity, Judaism, and then Greek and Roman. We're usually looking at Stoicism, Aristotle, Plato. It is not enough to simply believe you're well-intentioned and to believe in some kind of love and truth. It's not enough even to be an activist, all right? Left or right wing. It's not enough to just say, well, I just want to help the poor. That is not the height of maturity. When you really look at what Jesus says and Marcus Aurelius and all of these very smart people, what is really at the core of our beliefs is wisdom, prudence, and self-accountability. All right? What you really need to do is you need to ask yourself, am I putting my house in order? Am I taking the log out of my own eye? And that's what I try to do on the show. There are many things we cannot control, but there are many things we can. And we can control this. So harness that energy and put it into something that is of immediate concern. The children which are under your care, whether you're a parent, whether you're an uncle, an aunt, whether you're a teacher, whether you are involved in local politics, whatever it is, whether you're a spiritual leader, any priests listening in, this is of utmost importance. This is like basic 101. In fact, to be honest with you, this isn't even a Western thing. There used to be a time, no matter what country you went to, where you wouldn't mess with the kids. Or else, you want an easy ticket to the Kick Butt Express? You want to get your teeth knocked out by all of the angry men of the village and women? You mess with the kids. All right? Messing with the children used to be something so diabolical, only the worst of dictators were, that's what their hallmark was, right? Only the worst of men would mess with innocent children. But now we are so off the plantation. We're worried about finance and crime and this and that. It's time to flip everything upside down. Okay, so let's get into what's actually going on here. And what is actually going on is that if you look at Dr. Steve Turley's video and Tucker Carlson's video in terms of the sexualized children, before it used to be the sex ed thing, which was still a problem, used to be for pubescent, like, mid to late teens. And their big excuse was, well, kids get into trouble. And because we're under the kids' charge, it's good to have some resources and education for if a teenager, gets pregnant or something happens. And, it's just good to have this, just like the failed DARE anti-drug program, that ridiculous joke of a thing. They allegedly, and this is what the liberals in the educational system do, they keep pretending like there's already a problem, and then they make a solution as if, well, it was already bad and we're just trying to help. Well, that mask has fallen off. But before, it was kind of like that, right? And the man behind this we'll get into. But now it's like, come on, like there's never been more, according to statistics, transgender children confuse their sexuality. And what a coincidence that every time I go at, my debate team goes out and we debate other schools, every classroom has an LGBT flag. Every single one of them. Oh, there's no 10 Commandments or anything else. There's nothing to counter that. It's always an LGBT flag. There's big old posters. Would you like to talk about your gender fluidity and your sexual orientation, please? And you listen to these crazy blue-haired teachers. Let's be real, okay? These are perverts. And if they're not perverts, they're people that literally will just go down. Whatever is progressive, they will go down swinging for it. They're either religious cult people who think that as long as it's progressive and sticking it to white patriarchal men, even if it involves, child torture, maybe we can get them to be cannibals at this rate. I heard that the more people you eat, the more Trump gets angry. Maybe we should, these are either mental midgets who cannot think out of a wet paper bag, or they're perverts. What a shock also that the number one institution which has child pedophilia problems is the public school system. Wow. Not the Catholic Church, but they don't want to talk about that, do they? Right? So that was already an issue, but now you have children reading books which have graphic depictions of sexual positions, or stories with, like, it sounds like some kind of weird fan fiction or pornography that some, lonely, 20 or 30-year-old writes, some 30-year-old crazy woman. Those romance novels that like, older women would usually read with the guy that looks like Fabio and the muscles and all that, and there might be a steamy scene in it. I mean, I don't read that stuff, but I'm sure some of the people in the chat know about it. But okay, that you wouldn't want your kid to read. You wouldn't want your kid to read 50 Shades of Grey. The books that they're publishing for children are worse than that. We're not, it's not even softcore anything, where there's at least some kind of romantic thing before the, hanky-panky happens. We're talking just hardcore pornography given to elementary school students. I'm pretty sure if the World War II generation was here, apparently our pastor shared, there was a time where someone started putting skeezy stuff on the radio in Philadelphia, and the fathers literally barged into the radio station, dragged out this guy and pummeled him. And that was the end of that. But no, apparently it's okay to talk to kids about sex toys in class. And where did this all come from? And you may think to yourself, wow, it's like we suddenly have these rampant pedos in school. I'm afraid a lot of it has to be, the ball has to be in our court as well. Okay. It isn't just the left. And the reason for that is because we have been so distracted and so gullible and such stars and eyes for our public institutions. Okay. Many people have warned us about this and we didn't listen. Many people have warned us about the sex ed problem and we didn't listen. And where did this come from? Well, this creep right here is Alfred Kinsey. He is the creator of sex education. And I have a nice, fat, juicy article from LifeSite News about him in the description. You can check that out. And apparently he was really interested in whether or not, what was the exact age of when children get sexually interested in adults? Isn't that an interesting thing? And we're talking very specific. He wasn't like offhandedly mentioning it, I'm a child psychologist and, at a certain point, kids at puberty start to change as if no one knew that, right? For thousands of years, I would think we would have known what puberty is. They might have thoughts. And no, we're talking about like interviewing child rapists and possibly like paying them off to do things with kids and having creepy German Nazi experiments with kids to see, can children be sexualized? And, what age is exactly the time when it's okay to have sex? It's horrific. All right. This is the man that was allowed to write sex ed curriculum. And we're talking about back in the way before our time. Okay. Why was this not a huge uproar? It's the Twilight Zone. I can't understand it. Why are people so blind to what happens to their kids? Can someone please explain to me? I'm still searching for a complete, I keep searching for answers. The closest I have is that we're just too gullible and naive. And we just think that there's no way that this could happen. But the other thing maybe is, why can we not talk to our children about these things? Why don't we ask Johnny and Jane, what are you learning in school? Now people are finally, praise Jehovah. Wow. Finally, there's parents starting to ask their kids when they come home, what the heck are you learning about in terms of all of this social studies stuff and all of this literature? What's going on? There's a lot of people who say over the generations, people lost touch with the emotional side of psychological formation. Maybe our priorities have been messed up. But he was there, okay? This wasn't sudden. And not only that, after that all happened, you had, coincidentally, I'm sure, teenage pregnancies at a very high level in the 1970s. In Norway, it was like 1/4 or more of teenagers were like pregnant in the 70s. Now, it's gone down, possibly because we give out contraception to the kids, or maybe it's just because, I don't know. I don't know the exact reason, but it was a problem then. Now, I understand there is a little bit more of a splitting hairs thin line when it comes to mid to late teens, right? I mean, that's a lot different from sexualizing a 6 to 8-year-old to 10-year-old, right? Of course. I mean, we've had before college, essentially, you had teenagers who could die in a war, and young men were supposed to basically be men. They were like the second men of the house once you hit 14 to 16 years old. You weren't expected to be as educated back then. So you could have, mid to late teenagers could get married, especially, middle to low socioeconomic index, because you just had to know how to farm, shoot, be a responsible adult. Maturity was important. And of course, the woman would have a strong man to take care of her in the community, in the church. We're not talking about that. So it's still a problem because to be left in a cold society with no support and you're a single teenage mother is pretty scary. And then there's those that get pressured into having abortions by their parents. So that's still a problem. Why was this not above all of the other topics? This is right in front of our fingertips. This is not something that's happening in Russia and Ukraine. This is not something that might happen. This is happening now. All right, so we had this going on. And yes, I'm not just going to rail against why didn't we do something about it. What in the hell happened to the teachers, right? Something very wrong happened in the educational system for teachers. And it isn't just woke. The woke thing is the culmination of this. But something happened where teachers were expected to just do as told. Now, some people say this is the nature of a public institution. And I took a course on this about the different models of educational systems. And the red tape of the teachers union and the amount of power the teachers union has is a big factor as well. Because you can't fire teachers. Principals cannot fire teachers in these institutions because of all these protections. It's ridiculous. It might be the most overly aggressive union in the world, the teachers unions, especially in America and Canada. It's awful. And so if you have, a creepy educational board of a state or the federal system who wants to put in these creepy books from these creepy companies and weirdos like this guy, you cannot stop it. They can control you from the top. And if you have a creepy pervert teacher or a creepy racist teacher, you can't fire them. There's a whole apartment complex in North Jersey for sex offender teachers, and they just get kind of like their own little place. It's kind of like the little slap on the wrist for messing with kids. And the sex offender thing, slaps on the wrist for sex offenders is a whole nother can of worms in general. But I don't want to get lost in the weeds there. But that's true. That's what they have. So it's not looking good. It's looking like a dead end. And another problem that I see going on here is there's a lot of money to be made, not just in the books that are being published, but also there is a lot of money to be made sexualizing kids. And there's an article about clinics being connected to Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is involved in most. They have speakers that go there. They know that the kids are sexualized, probably because partly from the sex ed and just these, teachers either A, not teaching kids morals, just leaving them to sink or swim, and B, sexualizing the kids. But they know about it, and in Texas, a teenage girl can get an abortion without her parents knowing. They can sneak kids in to get abortions. So there is a whole industry involving teenagers, and they make money off of it. That's a very sick and evil connection with the public school system. The public school system is completely in bed with them. So there's another problem. And then I'd say another problem on top of all of that is just our attitude. Again, why are we so statist? We are to this day, willing to bend over for the state. Or they have these like teacher appreciation days. And now that people are getting mad at the teachers, they're so narcissistic, they put up signs, fake signs in the ground near the public school where I live. Oh, teachers are heroes. So they're so narcissistic, these people, they can't even handle parents starting to question them. But still, why did we abdicate this quality control sense, right? Put your energy, just as if you're running your business and you wouldn't stand any derelict employees that are ruining your business. Well, what about ruining your own kids at home? Put that energy in that, okay? Take some time to do that. Attend these teacher board meetings. Spread awareness. Talk to other friends of yours about it. Talk about it. Hey, are you okay with some kid, your kid, being raped mentally or physically by these creeps? Drag time, story time, whatever it's called. The first month that Drag Queen Story Time came out, the first 3 months, one of the first drag queen clowns, and they look like clowns, that was starting this program was a sex offender. They arrested him. And then everyone, all the liberals got caught with their, pants down because they were all defending them preemptively, the babies. They can't handle things to the point where they preemptively defend and then they get foot and mouth syndrome. But that's what happened. But this monopoly, right? There's a monopoly that the public schools, monopolies are not just about a, Jeff Bezos corporation. They are also about status monopolies. And that's a very good point many people criticize Marxists for. Why do you not talk about statist monopolies like the post office, which isn't as evil, but they're getting there with the way they throw my packages on the ground? Like like some of the bad police forces, right? There's a lot of people discussing, we need to look more into who's the sheriff and voting in good sheriffs because there's some questionable police activity going on. And especially like the public school, right? Why do we have this Superman idea of, they're good stewards of the world? They're not, okay? If anything, it's looking more like John Locke, that famous political science thinker, is correct. Government is a necessary evil, okay? It is not inherently a very good thing. It's something that we need, but we have to hold our nose and try to detach this centralized power from decentralized power and try to do it ourselves as much as we possibly can. But there's another final dimension to this. And the final dimension to this is political cults. Okay, these crazy blue-haired people, they are homegrown, indoctrinated young adult people like millennials to Gen X. Sometimes baby boomers. You might have that crazy like cat lady who's like grandma is still believing she's fighting the good fight, feminist fight or something. There's them too. They're really weird to look at. It's like some grandma who's like defending child porn. It's the creepiest thing ever. And yes, I went to a school board meeting and there were actual grandparents. It's just too disgusting for me to talk about. But yeah, there are some old sick people as well. But for the most part, these are people that went into colleges and universities, got indoctrinated into the woke cult. And then now they believe in the good word of woke and they want to spread it to kids. I call them political groomers, right? They're really weird. It's like they don't think that they're sexually hurting anyone, a lot of them, because they think that kids are created that way and I need to help them understand that it's okay to be sexually and gender confused. And so they're confused in their own way and they're trying to confuse kids all the more. And yeah, some of them are just creeps. Okay, there's them too. But what is that, right? Well, what that is also in the ball court of America in general. We are lazy thinkers. Okay? The West has become lazy thinkers. I think that wokeism is a product of selfism, me. That's all that. But there's also the product. It's also the product of, well, my professor / boss / teacher taught me this, and I'm not supposed to think for myself and challenge it because I won't get my degree. And I want to get ahead, and I want to appease the system because I don't want to lose my job, or I don't want to not get my degree, or I believe that what everyone says is, currently cool must be true. And when you word it out like that, you realize how stupid we have become. Where did this all come from? Well, it came from Marxists getting involved, arrogant Marxists and liberals getting involved in the higher academia spheres, and the colleges just kind of placated the social sciences and the political sciences because the colleges are more about not rocking the boat, tenure, and a lot of them just kind of thought, a lot of the founders that, currently took the positions of power were kind of, young when they were into Marxism and they kind of started believing it themselves. But also a lot of them are just coward punks who want to, let the professors, I'm sure they're smart, and I don't want to rock the boat. And after all, it looks like all the trends currently seem to be about the young are woke, and that's not even true, by the way, but the loud minority of woke people seem to. So let's just promote that, let's let it be instead of the truth. We don't care about the truth. It is a bastardization of the whole point of the educational system. The educational system should be meant to point people towards truth, not what a narrative is. So I'm going to get more into that. My time is almost up here. I'm going to get more into that next episode. Next episode, I will dive more into the whole woke thing, where it came from. I'm going to use a lot of Dr. Peterson, and you can check him out. He's in the description. It's a very long watch, but he goes really far into it on this whole mentality and where it came from. But take your kids out of these evil schools, learn to talk to them, open yourself up to truth and critical thinking, open yourself up to the biblical Judeo-Christian and Greco-Roman foundations of truth-seeking, learn to ask questions, learn to teach your child to be courageous, to stand up for their own brain and their own beliefs, and take down this whole la-la land in your head about all these boogeymen out there. The boogeyman is right there in your basement. He's right behind you. You don't need to look around for him anymore, folks. All right? You don't need your horror movies. You don't need your CSI, cold case, whatever nonsense. You don't even need to look at all the recent rapes and murders in your local city. All of that pales in comparison to an evil organization that is teaching your children. So I hope that shook things up here. I hope that enlightens you as to what's going on. And I hope that you'll stick with me. I will continue to press this topic. I will talk more about critical race theory. I will talk more about the woke. All of that is what my show will continue to talk about. So I guess I'll do a little Q&A, and let's see if anyone has any questions or comments, and that'll be the end of the show. Elizabeth, my middle daughter and all our friends read 50 Shades of Grey. Yes, and that is another factor. I did a show about the young and porn. There's a porn problem with the young. Again, it has a lot to do with people not caring about what their children are reading or watching. And a lot of it has to do with the sick music video cult, the music industry, the Hollywood industry, but definitely the music industry, and these weird authors who Barnes & Noble just promotes, 50 Shades of Grey. I hate to tell you, but 50 Shades of Grey is pretty tame now. But yeah, and it is a problem. It's not very feminist, by the way. I mean, to fantasize about a guy who's into some strange domination stuff, it blows my mind. I don't understand why that's a big thing. But anyway, Freud's having a field day with that one, I'm sure, in the grave. But yes, it is another factor. It isn't all just one thing. And that's one thing I'm trying to teach. It never is one thing. A mature person looks at all factors. They take the time to look at all factors when you're in a bad pickle in culture, because people are very complicated, and there's a lot of butterfly effect and action reaction stuff going on here. So that is another problem. All right, so everyone, let's calm down. I hope I didn't make you too squeamish. I just had to drag it out into the light. You know, drink some tea, relax, take a deep breath. I'm not here to condemn. I'm just trying to wake people up and start you off on a road towards some real action before it's too late. And I will talk to you next time. God bless. And